Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Cassie Riva. I'm the events coordinator at an Unlikely Story bookstore in Plainville, Massachusetts. Before we start, here's a couple of technical tips. If you have any questions for the authors, they can be written in the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen, or you can write them in the chat on the side. And if you'd like to buy this very awesome book, there's a green button at the bottom of your screen that's going to take you right to our website. And when you purchase Wendy or Kristy's books from an Unlikely Story, you're going to receive an autographed book plate from both of the authors, while supplies last. With that said, I am so excited to introduce Wendy Francis, who is the author of several summer-themed novels, including The Summer Sale, The Summer of Good Intentions, Three Good Things, and Best Behavior. Wendy is also a former book editor, and her essays have appeared in Good Housekeeping, The Washington Post, Yahoo Parenting, and The Huffington Post. After graduating from Harvard, she attended law school for a brief stint before realizing she was more interested in rewriting cases than studying case law. Wendy's new novel, Summertime Guest, is a clever book about a fictitious luxury Boston hotel where one weekend in mid-June, someone falls tragically to her death from the hotel balcony. The book follows the lives of four very different people affected by the tragedy. Summertime Guest is a perfect summer beach read with just the right amount of mystery to keep you turning pages. This book just came out today and it's already a staff pick. Everyone loves it. And joining Wendy tonight is Kristy Woodson Harvey. Kristy is the USA Today bestselling author of Feels Like Falling, The Southern Side of Paradise, The Secret to Southern Charm, Slightly South of Simple, Lies and Other Acts of Love, Dear Carolina, and Under the Southern Sky, which is going to be available this April 20th. Kristy is the winner of the Lucy Bramlett Patterson Award for Excellence in Creative Writing, a finalist for the Southern Book Prize, and her work has been optioned for film. Her books have also been acknowledged in Entertainment Weekly's Spring Reading Picks, Women's World's Best Books, Huffington Post Summer Reading, Women's Fiction Style, and Southern Living's Most Anticipated Beach Reads, among many, many others. Kristy also blogs with her mom, Beth Woodson, on Design Chic about how creating a beautiful home can be the catalyst for creating a beautiful life. I'm also like a little obsessed with her Instagram because there's so many beautiful pictures of very like spotlessly clean homes. I just absolutely love it. Wendy, Kristy, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and happy book birthday, Wendy.
Thank you.
Here you are.
Oh my God, I don't see Wendy.
Thank you.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks,
Hi.
Cassie. That's a great introduction.
Thank you so
Wendy.
much. Hi,
Happy book birthday. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
before we get started, I mean, it's Tuesday, it's release day. We have to have a little toast. So here is to you, Wendy, and to your beautiful summertime guests and your wonderful new drink, the Seafarer. So cheers.
Thank you so much. Cheers to you. Cheers, everyone. And thank you so much, Cassie, for that great intro, and to Unlikely Story for hosting me, and for Kristy for being here and interviewing me tonight and talking a bit. I'm so grateful, and it's nice to see people popping up on the screen. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I can't imagine a more fun way to spend the night for my pub date. So thank you.
I'm so excited. I wish we were doing it in person, but this is the next best thing because we're getting to see so many people from all over the country that we would not get to see otherwise. So that's good. And so I will say, everybody who's out there, I know you have a lot of questions for Wendy. So I'm going to be kind of keeping an eye on the questions as I'm asking my questions. So go ahead and get them in early, because I know sometimes we sort of run out of time and we don't get to everybody's questions. And I really want to make sure that we get to your questions. So just make sure to drop them whenever you have them, either in the chat or over on the Ask a Question button, and we'll try to get to everybody. So Wendy, I just have to say, first of all, I told you this backstage, so sorry I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating. I love this book so much. And I was telling you, I am not a person who reads on a screen. I don't like to read on a screen. It's not my thing.
Either.
And so your publicist was kind enough to send me a hard copy, advanced copy, but but at the same time, she said, just in case you need to get a move on earlier than that, here's the PDF. And so I just opened the PDF up and I started reading, and I was planning to just read like a page or two just to kind of get a feel for the story. And like 50 pages later, I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a great book. I love this so much. And that's always a good feeling as a reader, because you want to be in this story and in this place. So The Seafarer is everywhere that we all want to be right now. So guys, I'm telling you, pick this up, go to the Seafarer with Wendy. And so before we kind of deep dive into the questions, can you give us your little spiel that everyone's going to be asking you a million times, but can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, I would love to. And thank you so much for reading it and giving the great blurb. And this is my first book that surprisingly, I guess, has been set in Boston proper, because I've had books set in Wisconsin, which is where I'm from originally. That was my first novel. And then I moved to the Cape and a Bermuda cruise. And then my last book, Best Behavior, was set sort of on the outskirts of Boston. But Summertime
I
Princess,
loved that book too. I actually sat out on the dock and read it, I remember.
Oh, thank you. So this is the one, this is kind of my love letter to Boston. And I was writing it and revising it, and I'm sure quarantine is going to come up a lot because, Kristy, you have a younger son too. What grade is he in now?
He is in the 3rd grade.
Third. Oh, so he's really, I think he's a little older. My son's in 7th grade. Yeah. So we've both been doing homeschooling of some
7th
kind.
is a lot harder than 3rd.
Well, I don't know. Homeschooling, though. So anyway, so I was trying to do right. And while we were all quarantined at home, and doing homeschooling and all of that. And all I kept thinking about was I really want to go on vacation and go where somewhere nice. And I want, wishing for summer. And I had, so many, as novels do, I had a lot of different ideas percolating for this book. And I'd always wanted to write a story about a love story of about 4 different couples who were in various stages of their relationship and in love. And so I had these couples. I wanted to write about a couple that was, the first blush of love and recently engaged, and another couple that was married but had a little baby, and so I was sort of trying to juggle that. And then another couple that had a very passionate relationship, but it was volatile and maybe not necessarily a good thing, or could be, who knew. And then I wanted to include a couple who had been married for a long time and had gone through raising children and what that was like. And so those story ideas were kind of in the back of my head. And then a couple of years ago, when we were all still out and about, my husband and my son and I were walking around the Seaport District in Boston, which is this, now is this beautiful kind of, it is the place to see and be seen in Boston. And, but, back in the 90s, before the Big Dig project here in Boston, it was kind of, lots of abandoned. There are a couple of really great restaurants, Anthony's Pier 4 and Jimmy's Harborside. But other than that, it was a lot of old fishing warehouses and parking lots, abandoned parking lots. It really was not a nice area. And then when the Big Dig happened, it connected sort of Boston, the financial district and the city, more to this area, which is known as the Seaport District. And as a result, and there was a cleanup of the Boston Harbor, which was also a big deal. And as a result, people just started building, and there are now all of these Tony hotels and restaurants and, gorgeous condominiums and parks and walkways. And it's just a beautiful spot to be. And we were so wowed by the transformation. And I think I even said to my husband, like, can you imagine if there was some grand old hotel that had been here for ages? And, there's certainly, Boston's a historic town, and there are a lot of hotels like that around here. But there's nothing that's been in this area on the water. Wouldn't it be so great if there was this rambling old, hotel with a wraparound porch right on the water, and it had been here for years and years. And so that's kind of, got everything, the wheels spinning. And so this story is kind of, it takes the 4 couples and it pops them into the Seafarer Hotel, which is a fictional hotel, I should say. It does not exist here in Boston. It's just my imagination. But it's a grand old hotel where all the rich and famous have come since 86 is when it was started. And Riley and Tom are the young couple here. They're trying to plan their wedding, possibly at the Seafarer Hotel. Jean-Paul is the hotel's general manager. He's French, and he and his wife just had a baby, and he's trying to keep his marriage afloat while the Grand Hotel is reopening. Everyone knows how exhausting it is to have a baby, a newborn baby, trying to do all that.
Yes.
And then Gwen and Jason are both in academia, and they're at the hotel for a long weekend getaway. Gwen has graciously planned this whole surprise getaway for her boyfriend, but they are trying to figure out if they're ready to take next steps in the relationship. And then there's Claire, who is recently widowed and had been married for quite a while with grown kids to Walt, who recently passed away. And so she has come to Boston for a couple of reasons. She's a newspaper reporter in Providence, and she's been involved in something that sort of has her, she has to take a leave from her job. So she's in Boston to get away from that, but also to look up an old love of hers, an ex-boyfriend from college, and to see if there might be any spark there. And then grounding, sort of bringing all these couples together, is this tragedy that starts at the beginning, and a woman falls or is pushed, they don't really know, from her balcony at the hotel. And so the story sort of unfolds around that. What happened to this woman? Who was this woman? And that's what kind of brings them all together in the story. That was not succinct summary. That went all over the place in that.
No, that was perfect though. I mean, there's a lot happening in this story. You can't really say it in 2 sentences. I mean, there's a lot going on. So I do have to ask you. So I loved Riley and her relationship with her future mother-in-law.
A lot of people have commented on that. I think there are a lot.
I just thought it was so funny and so well done because, that is such a point of contention. And even I think for people, I mean, I had an amazing mother-in-law, and so I can't really, but I feel like even people that you'll say.
We both have to say right now, we have amazing mother-in-law.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think, I'll say to a friend like, oh my gosh, your mother-in-law seems so great. And they're like, everyone is kind of like annoyed by their mother-in-law. And so it's funny because in reading this story, you can see how, I think her mother-in-law has good intentions, or her future mother-in-law has good intentions.
Yes.
But she's just really pushing them on her. So was there anything that inspired that character, or was it just kind of like, oh, this will be funny?
Well, like you said, no, I really do.
Not your mother-in-law.
Yes, obviously. No, my mother-in-law is wonderful. But no, I think you just, I've always been fascinated by wedding planners and wedding coordinators and all that involves. And, I think we've all had friends where we've seen the domineering mother-in-law. We've heard stories about that. So,
sorry, there's a giant mosquito on my wall.
As long as you're not being chased.
Had our windows open.
If you need to leave, you can go swat it.
No. I just didn't want it to bite me.
So yeah, there was no one particular inspiration, but I do think it's a common theme among, brides to be, not so much having an overbearing mother-in-law, but just trying to get your husband to be as involved as you are in the planning, and to intercede when you need him to intercede, to say, you know what, why don't you just back off, Mom? Or you know what? No, this is really important to me, and this is what I want to do. And I think that's what Riley is hoping for, is a little more involvement from her fiance. He doesn't seem, he's in love, very much in love with Riley, but doesn't care too much about the wedding. And so
and he's sort of between a rock and a hard place, because you're between your mother and your bride, so you're kind of like. And you're used to listening to your mom, right? I mean, so it's, it's kind of a tough spot for him to be. I'm sort of sorry for him. Okay, well, Claire to me is just, as I'm sure she will be to everyone, is just is a really fascinating character. And I just immediately fell in love with this idea that she is going out on this limb and she is going to track down this old love. And I loved that idea. So, is that just something that, did you set out to write about this idea of kind of like first love, lost love, or did it just sort of unfold as the story unfolded?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, because I have to think back, and I honestly can't remember if Well, I guess I knew she was going to come back looking, because that was what was going to bring her to Boston.
Yeah.
But I was really thinking about more her relationship with Walt and her family, and what it takes to keep a marriage together and make it work.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there is, summertime is kind of the time when you start thinking about, oh, the one that got away or lost loves, or what if I showed up in this person's life again? And I think that, fortunately, I'm not at the age yet where, I have friends where we're dealing with being a widow, thank goodness, but I think there are divorces and separations and things like that going on, where people are forced to kind of reevaluate, did I choose the right person for me? And what about this person who, I always thought, oh, maybe be a good fit, or maybe you loved him in college, but you thought, oh, he'd be an awful dad, and he's just not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he turned out to actually to have made his own family, or to gone on to be a successful person, and really, mature beyond his years than you dreamed. And what if you went back in time? That kind of thing. And so I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I do too. Well, and I love the idea of being able to explore that in a story, because I think, it's one of the few places that we really can do that. We really can go into a story and think, well, what would happen if this character had done this? And what would happen if they had done this? And we really get to sort of see. And I think in Claire's situation too, what part of our life have we sacrificed in the wondering what could have been?
Right.
Which I think is also really interesting. I think she's a reminder of the here and now, and how important it is to live in the present.
Right.
Well, one of the characters in this story, and I definitely think we have to say it's a character, is the seafarer. I mean, the seafarer becomes a character in this story, and it is this grand and glamorous and beautiful place. And I know you told us a little bit about the inspiration, but did you have any specific hotels that were in your mind as you were writing this story, or was this just purely fictional?
Well, there were a couple, and there's one that is up in New England hotel. So I don't know if you'll know them, but there's one up in New Hampshire called Wentworth by the Sea. Which is kind of this. Oh, you know it.
I do know that. Yes,
it's beautiful.
I've not been there, but I know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of like this. It's all been refurbished, and it's wood. Has sort of that Victorian look to it, but it's gorgeous on the inside. And there have been presidents who've come to visit there, and there have been famous folks. And it has, kind of a partially wraparound porch, and it's a resort with golf and all that stuff. So that was kind of in the back of my mind when I was picturing it. But just thinking again, wouldn't it be great to have the sprawling hotel in Boston, which, Boston's so tight on space that you don't really have those kind of sprawling hotels. But that was the one in my mind. And then I've since looked at or had someone reminded me of the Ocean House in Rhode Island, which is also this gorgeous grand old hotel on the water. So that kind of feel is what
it reminded me of I mean, I know you weren't thinking about this when you were writing it, but it sort of reminded me of the feeling of, oh my gosh, it's left me. I think my mom is watching. Mom, if you're watching, will you tell me the name of the hotel? It's in Edgartown, and it's on the water.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Is it the White Elephant? But that's in Nantucket, isn't it? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Nantucket.
That's Nantucket. That's not what I'm thinking of. It'll come to me. But anyway,
there are a few.
Times, and I can't think of what it's called. Anyway, but all of those just old, grand, beautiful.
Oh, Chatham Bars Inn. Someone just gave that. Was that it? No.
But anyway, I loved this hotel. I loved getting to be here because I was, reading this right in the middle of the pandemic and the doldrums, when there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's still a little dicey now, but at least I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But just, being able to be in this beautiful place, even though there are a lot of things that are going on in this story that aren't necessarily all happy. And as we know, the story begins with kind of a tragedy and a mystery that we're trying to unfold. And so as a writer, I'm so interested in your process that way. I think a lot of times we're writing stories and I'll think, well, of course we're going to know what happens in the end, or, this is obviously what's going to happen in the end. And so I love this idea of just having the end kind of become the beginning in some ways. And of course you're unraveling this mystery, and it gives you because for me as a reader, I like to see the why and the how, not necessarily the what. So is this something that you've done before? Was this something new for you? And did it feel different than any of your other stories?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this book practically killed me because it was very different. In that
it's the Harbor View. Thank you, Alicia. God, that is concerning that I couldn't remember.
Oh, Harbor View Hotel. Okay. There you go.
Sorry.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was, this one, interesting. I always knew how it was going to start with the end. I knew that the woman was going to fall because that was how I was going to bring these, or fall or be pushed or whatever. That was how I was going to bring these stories together. But it didn't really start out as a mystery in the sense of who was it. Originally, in the first draft, you knew who it was who fell. So I went back and I had a conversation with my editor, just like, it feels a little, I don't know, can we get some more attention maybe? And so I thought about it. I thought, oh, well, maybe if we don't know who dies at the beginning, then I could kind of go back and weave that into the story. So this particular novel took a whole lot more plotting and going back and planting kind of red herrings here and there and making sure everything, the timelines matched up and the scenes that, that everything kind of meshed together because when you're telling so many different stories, I really kind of had to plot those out and figure out what was going to happen when to reveal things. And that is not, even though, and you know this too, like in your fiction, you have secrets that get revealed over the course of the story that come to light, and how you're going to do that and weave that into the story. And I think all of my summer books have some kind of secret in them, but they're not mysteries per se. So this was kind of my first summertime read that was actually a mystery. And I, the whole time saying to my husband, I'm not a mystery writer. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how this is going to work, how I'm going to make it work. And so it was really kind of agonizing trying to figure out the timelines and things like that, because I'm a much more intuitive writer, and I think, and I'm more accustomed to letting the characters take me where they take me, even though I have a general sense of the themes and what maybe one or two of the secrets are. I am not one of those people who plots things out. And I didn't, even with this book, even on revision, which is why I think it took so many revisions to get it right. It just, you really have to take it a different way.
I totally empathize with that, because I am like you. I'm such a pantser, and I I don't know what the story is going to be. So even if I have to turn something in that's like an outline, like that, I don't do that anymore, because I can't do it. I don't know what's going to happen until I'm like, I'll try to do it. And then I start writing, and
then it changes.
And this character ends up here and this one ends up there. And to me, I think that's one of the really fun parts about being a writer. But you did such a good job on this, because I think it could have been anyone. It really could have been anyone. And I think that's, it definitely kept you turning the pages, as did, it is still an extremely character-driven story, and you get those really deep relationships with the characters, and which I think is, that's hard to pull off, a story that's plot-driven but still maintains that really character-centric feeling.
You're right.
And which I think you did really well.
Thank you. And I think, your fiction is the same way, and I think that's why it appeals to me too, is that I think we're both we're drawn to setting as a character, the places, the locales where our stories are set, whether it's a hotel or the beach or a small town. It's, that becomes a character in itself. And then the characters, I'm drawn to books with, strong female characters. And I think that's such a, makes it for a richer reading experience. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I'm going to switch gears just a tiny bit.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about you and your background and how you got here. You were an editor before you were a writer.
I was.
So tell us about being an editor and how you made that switch. And do you think there's anything that you learned from being an editor that's helped to make you a better writer?
Good question. Well, so yes, I was in law for, were you a lawyer too?
I was not a lawyer, but I easily could have been. So
Okay. For some reason I was thinking you would
Well,
put
I
your
was
foot
really
in.
strongly considering going to law school. And my husband
Okay.
was like, "What do you really want to do? Like, or do you really want to be a lawyer?" And I was very young when we got married, and
Yeah.
I was like, I really don't. I really want to be a writer." And he was like, "Well,
Yeah.
why don't you try to write instead?" And I was
Yeah.
kind of like,
What a great
So
guy. Yeah.
yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So you missed, so you
Yeah.
saved yourself a lot of
But I feel like
time.
so many writers were lawyers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's such a common
Yeah.
theme.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Especially, ones who write historical fiction or thriller fiction too, because
Yeah.
they know the law.
Yeah.
But so I kind of got into publishing because I didn't like law, and I knew that I wanted to be involved with books and writing somehow. And so I lucked out in getting I worked at Houghton Mifflin in Boston here, even though I had thought originally I was going to have to work in New York. And being a Midwestern girl at heart, I spent a week on my girlfriend's couch in New York and trying to convince myself that I could live there. It would be fine. This is, not to date myself too much, but back in the 90s, and it was not the safest place at the time. And so, I thought I was going to have to make a living there. But anyway, I lucked out and came back to Boston, which is where I went to school, and worked at Houghton Mifflin and had the opportunity to work with two great editors as an assistant. And in publishing world, it's still very old fashioned. It's very much an apprenticeship where you kind of learn by doing. So, you start by changing the fax machine and knowing how the copier works. And, but I had two great editors one who worked on literary fiction and women's memoir, and another who has since passed away, Peter Davison, but he was the poetry editor and also did a lot of history books at Houghton. And so they were both great mentors in that they showed me sort of different sides of it. And then I went on to edit some of my own fiction there, and I ended up being there for 12 years, I guess, 11 years, something like that. And then I worked at a smaller press called Da Capo Press, which was in Cambridge. It's no longer around now, but or it got folded in. I feel like
something else.
Everything else was it's going to be one big conglomerate. But so editing I really enjoyed, and I loved being cheerleaders for my authors, and I loved the editing process. I think once I had a baby, it was really hard to go back, and the way, I think the stars just kind of aligned, and I said to my husband, I'd really like to just try and see if I can write something, and, spend a year doing it. And so I did it. I sent it out to a couple of people I knew in the business, my first manuscript, and they were all said rightly, oh, this is nice. It's interesting. It's kind of quiet. Why don't you spend some more time on it? And so I did. It took more time, and ended up getting an agent. That was my first book. That was back in 2011, I think. So
that's awesome.
So I just went over to the other side, and I think that it gave me an appreciation for revising, that your first draft is never perfect. You have to revise and revise and revise. And it gave me, a sense of attention for detail and for character, and kind of the momentum of the story. So all those things were really, really helpful, I think, being on the other side. But what it didn't prepare me for is allowing myself to just write, which is what you really have to do. And not, I think when I first started out, I was trying to edit every page basically as I went along, and you can't. You just kind of have to allow yourself to write it all out and know that it's going to be, an awful first draft or whatever. But that you'll get to go back and do it again and again. So
that's exactly how I am. I mean, I just whatever gets on the page, but I just feel like, but I think it takes a while because you don't really know. And I went to journalism school, and so I didn't have like an editing background necessarily, but I'd done a fair amount of writing, and I was used to like these smaller chunks of space and every word being really precious, you know, and every word is precious in your novel too, but it can't be until you have a story on the page, or you'll just spend forever. It will never get finished. And don't you think there's something so fulfilling about like when you get finished with that first draft and you're like, okay, like it might be horrible, but I have a story. There's a story here, and it has a beginning, middle, and an end. Somewhere in here, this story is going to come.
The first draft is always the hardest, I think, because you want to get it done and over with. And the other thing I'll say that was really helpful about working in publishing is that I had a better understanding of how things work. I think it would be really hard to come in as an author and not have a sense of what publicity and marketing do and how it takes a whole machine. You need your editor's comments, but you also need your publicist input. You need the sales department to be excited about the book, and that it really is this team effort. And I don't think I would have really gotten that if I had just come into it thinking, okay, here's my book.
I had no idea, like to the point that I did not realize that publishing houses had imprints. Like, that's how much I did not know. I didn't know anyone. Like I didn't know any authors. I didn't know agents. I didn't know anyone in the business. So I was just this girl like sitting at her computer, and it wasn't even that long ago. Like I think I signed with my agent in 2012, but I mean, I was printing my query letters and putting them in envelopes and putting them in the mail. And it wasn't even that long ago, but like people were still taking like real printed queries. And
I still remember. And I still remember even just with the first manuscript, taking it to Kinko's and copying it because the agent I was sending it to didn't want it to be emailed, even though people were starting to do that, but just wanted the hard copy.
The same thing happened to me. I did the same thing, and I remember going in the post office, and I had this big, huge, fat manila envelope with the manuscript in it, and Empire State of Mind came on, and I was like, that is a sign, because I was sitting the package to this agent in New York, and I was like, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's perfect. Serendipity.
I haven't really thought about that. Okay, so I'm going to ask a few of our viewer questions, and then we'll just kind of like go back and forth. We can go back to some of my questions too, but I just want to make sure that we get to everybody. So Doris Biddix wants to know, how long has this story been on your heart before you actually wrote it?
Oh, wow. I would say probably 3 or 4 years. I think those ideas percolate again. I think I had this idea and you're probably the same way, Kristy. You have a lot of different ideas and you're not quite sure. You think, oh, this might be a good book, or this might be a good book. And then sometimes those ideas end up colliding and making one book. So, but, so I had I had the ideas for it, but they hadn't gelled until I would say the end. I've lost all track of time.
I know, time is around.
I think 2 falls ago, maybe I was writing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds about right.
And that's so well put, because when you look at this book, this is a story that you could have taken any one of these stories and made it a book, So, I mean, you could have it wouldn't have been as interesting or as rich, but I think about like, I don't know if you do this, but I'll have all these different sort of little giblets of ideas. Sometimes they're written down somewhere.
I love it.
Yeah. And I'll think, okay, well, there's something in here, but like it's an idea, but it's not a story.
Right.
And so then sometimes like I was sitting on the beach today and my son was skimboarding, and I've been thinking about this book that I want to write. And then I was like, wait, but if I put these two together, that's my story,
Right.
And I wondered in this book if you did any of that, of kind of like putting ideas together.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So Sharon Person says that that you have the best book covers. I was like, where did she go? I just saw her. Alicia says, was that Boston Hotel the inspiration for this story? I'm sorry, Alicia. That was like a minute ago, and now I don't remember what she was talking about.
I think that the Wentworth by the Sea was probably the one that was in my imagination.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Michelle Marcus. She says hi. She was running a little late, and she'll listen to the rest later. Okay. Anissa Armstrong wants to know, who was the toughest character to write in the book and why? Anissa has good questions.
Yes. I'm trying how to answer that without giving too much away. Let's see. Well, interesting. I think, it's funny. In some ways, Riley was really challenging because I had to think back to like what it was like to be young and freshly in love and all those wedding pressures. So that, was kind of challenging. Claire's character was challenging.
Yeah.
For lots of different reasons.
I bet you had to do, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to say, I bet you had to do a lot of research for her character.
Yeah. Yep. And then, the guys, I always struggle a little bit with getting into their heads. And I really love Jean-Paul, I have to say. Like he was fun to write. He's this French expatriate. He's really trying to be a good dad and a good husband, and he's besotted with his little baby daughter, but the hotel demands that
so many responsibilities.
Yeah. So he's kind of overwhelmed.
I actually really loved that because I think as women, we tend to sort of think and write our POV of like, oh my gosh, we have this baby and it's on us all day, and like, not that we don't think about the other side of it, but just see it through
we don't have time to think about it.
Like he has so much pressure, I'm like trying to maintain this really amazing career, and it's so demanding, but his wife needs him and his baby needs him, and it's a lot. You did that really well.
Thank you.
Tamara says, hi, Kristy and Wendy, and happy pub day, Wendy. She's reading The Summertime Guest now and really enjoying it.
Oh, good. Hi. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
I'm recognizing some of these folks now from in faces, too. Thanks for chiming in.
Yeah, Tamara's from Traveling with T. You probably know her blog.
Yes.
And so Marlene wants to know, are all of your books standalones?
Yes.
Yes,
they are. Yep.
And then Terry Harold wants to, I'm like squinting. Terry Harold wants to know, where do you write, and do you type or handwrite?
Aw, she's one of my old pals from Wisconsin.
Oh,
So so that's interesting you asked this question, because I used to write right in here, which is my office space, but since quarantine or isolation, my husband has taken over the space as his home office, and I've been writing downstairs, which is in our, I guess I call it our sunroom.
Okay.
SUN room. Just says a lot of light and windows, but it's also where the dog is, and where my son does his homework, and where,
there's a lot happening. So it's the SUN and the SON room.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sort of in the middle of everything, but I'm definitely at a computer typing. I can't do the longhand writing. I don't have the patience, I think. But yeah, so that's right. It's a happy place. There's a lot of commotion going on, but I think if it were just completely silent, although I don't know, it's hard to know. I feel like I've had to adapt, right? Everybody has to adjust to the fact that everyone's home now and you're trying to work, and we all have open spaces now. There aren't a lot of closed doors. So
no, not at all. It's definitely different. And I will say, like, everyone working from home and schooling from home, and it's definitely a different world. Mine is a little bit normal. It's much more normal now, but yeah, I definitely felt that.
School?
Yeah, so he's in school. So the only time that he was really out was last, I guess in March when everything started. He never went back to school at the end of the year, but then he goes to a really small school, and we have had very minimal cases here where I live. Yeah. And so they were like, we're going to try to open and we're going to see what happens. And they did the social distancing and the masks and the whatever, and it's gone really well. But it was so funny because when he went back, I was like, this is going to last like 2 weeks. There's no way this is going to work.
Yeah. Right.
So that was great. But for a while in there, we were sort of all on top of each other. But it's fine. It was good bonding time, and it was all good. But it was funny because I would say to my husband and my son, I would be like, okay, I don't know which one of you is more distracting. Mommy needs to write.
There's always something that needs to be done,
It's just like the laundry's going, and there's always something.
Yeah.
Okay, so Peggy wants to know, were you inspired to write, this is obviously someone who knows you really well. Were you inspired to write creative mysteries due to your childhood role play of Harriet the Spy?
She planned to plant that. Peggy is my long lost. She is my best childhood friend. We went to grade school together in Wisconsin, and yeah, all through. So we used to go around. She's doing this. And we used to go around the neighborhood and pretend we were Harriet the Spy because we were so in love with that book, and we would take our notebooks and our pens and we would wander around and we would note things down that we thought were interesting in the neighborhood, which I can't imagine now what that would be, but I would love to, if we had saved those notebooks, it would be so fun to look back. But
I mean, my best friend and I used to do that too. And I'm like, what were we? I don't know. We would investigate like really interesting. I don't know what we were investigating, but we
the
sure
garage doors open on the neighbor's house. I wonder what that means.
I remember being at the beach one time and we would be like, oh, these people leave like a different pair of shoes out by the door every night. Like, what is, and it wasn't like a place that had like shoe shine and it would be like tennis shoes, but it was a different pair. Like, it's so funny the things you remember, but yeah, I don't know.
Hey, Peggy, thanks for joining in.
I love that. That's a great question, Peggy. Christine wants to know, where in Wisconsin are you from?
Oh, so, well, we grew, I don't know how people outside of Madison. So
she used to live in, I don't know how you say it, Ripon, Ripon,
Wisconsin. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's, I miss it. I still have some family back there, and we try to get back there to visit my brother and his family. He's got a little daughter. So, but of course we haven't seen anyone for 2 years. So
yeah.
It's but it's, I love the Midwestern pace of life and how everyone's so nice. And, my husband, I always have to say, Boston's very different.
Yeah,
people,
no, sure.
Especially from driving, crazy drivers in Boston, they have that reputation, and it's true. And, it's, I think in Wisconsin, everyone would wait for you to let you in, if you're trying to merge or something. Yes. In Boston, they just won't move the cars.
Yes. Well, I feel like, especially being on book tour, like in the Midwest, I feel like the Midwest is a lot like the South. Like everyone's very friendly. And like, if you're standing in line for coffee, like they're chit-chatting with you and they don't know you, everyone's very nice. And they wave at you and let you cross the street. And, okay. Sharon Person, we have kind of a lot coming in. Sharon Person wants to know, how did you decide how many main characters to have? Did you start with this many, or did you add more in as you went along?
So I always had the 4 couples. Yeah, I can't think of if I added people in. Maybe some of the people at the hotel were working there. As I kind of tried to flesh out the seafarer and that. But no, I think I always originally, I seem to know my characters and my setting first when I start a book. I don't know about you, Kristy, but those are always clear in my mind, and the plot is less. That's a little more blurry.
Me too. I know, which is kind of unfortunate, but I don't know. I think characters are so important, though. That's good to know. Yeah. Okay, so Michelle Marcus wants to know, well, it says Michelle M. I'm assuming it's Michelle Marcus. Says, will you set future books also in Massachusetts?
So, my next one I think is going to be set is set in Hull, which is like a little, it's almost it has an island feel to it. It's a little peninsula off of in South Boston, or south of Boston, I should say. So, so the next one will be local too. So, it's funny. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, she also says there's a name for those drivers, but I can't say it here. I don't know what it is, so y'all have to tell me later.
So, Boston
the
drivers.
North Carolinian is out of the loop.
But I should say, I love Wisconsin. I love the Midwest, but I have also come to love Boston. And when I say that this book is a love letter to Boston, I really do feel that way because despite the crazy drivers, I do, there's so much to do and love in Boston. And as I was sitting behind the 4 walls of my home, I really just wanted to go to the North End for a dinner, for a romantic dinner. You know, I wanted to go to the MFA again and wander through the halls of the MFA and go to Harvard Square and, you know, have a nice dinner. It just, those kinds of things that you take for granted when you are in a city and that you have easy access to, and suddenly it's all gone. And that was kind of what I was craving. And I think that kind of came through in the book, is that these were the places I wanted to be. And so it was fun to write about that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And Michelle wants to know, would you write any books about the Midwest? And you've had several.
My first one was set in Wisconsin, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called Three Good Things. That was my very first novel. It's kind of a different novel. I mean, there's a part of it that's in summer, and that's actually set in Nantucket, but the home base of the story is in Madison, Wisconsin. And it's about two sisters. Yep.
Okay, that's great. And then Susan Baldwin wants to know, are you working on your next book yet? Don't you love, okay, I was going to let you take a sip and say it's my favorite thing in the world when it's like pub day. It's literally pub day. And you get that email at like 8:00. Like, I got the book this morning and I've already read it. It was great. When's the next one coming out? And you're like, oh my God, so you're on this. And everyone's already read it. It's the best thing in the world. It's like the thing that you want is for people to email you. But you're like, oh my gosh, the next book. It's like it's like when you bring your baby home from the hospital and people are like, when are you having your next baby? And you're like,
I'll get back to you. Yeah. No, I am working on another one, and it is set in Hull. And this one is, again, though, it's about three sisters, I think, but a lot can change as I'm writing.
Yeah,
so I can't say much more about it, but yes, another summertime kind of
love
book.
it. Okay, so wait, I missed one up here. Okay, Robin wants to know, what books and authors are you reading now?
Ooh, good question. Well, first, let me say I just started Kristy's new book, which is coming out in 2 weeks.
How
the Southern Sky, which is wonderful.
Thank you.
Predictably wonderful, and so this will be out in 2 weeks, and everyone should definitely pick this up. It's already gotten all sorts of best lists, and
well, thank you.
a great book. And just trying to think what else, because I know there's other stuff I've been reading and I've been posting about. Oh, Anne Lamott's book. Have you read her new one?
I have not, but I keep seeing it. Who was it? One of my favorite book bloggers posted it today, and I was like, I have got to read that book.
Yeah.
But you know what? Because I'm going on tour, I try to like buy books at every bookstore that I go to.
Yeah.
So I have like this little list, I always want to, be. So that's one that's definitely on my list.
Yeah.
For
sure. Dawn Night and Dusk? Dawn?
Yeah. Something like that. And it has that beautiful cover.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I just read Landslide, which I thought was wonderful. It's a novel about a mom and her teenage boys, who she refers to as the wolves. And I just thought it was so perfect. She's dealing with them at the stage where they don't want to talk to her. And her husband is a fisherman and he gets into an accident. And so it's about marriage and, keeping your family together, even though your teenage boys aren't talking to you. And I can see myself being there in a few years. So
oh my gosh. I know. Sometimes I have to have some of Will's friends, and he's only in 3rd grade, but the girls in his class come home from school because they'll chit chat, but the boys are they don't ever tell me anything. I'm like, come on, you guys, something had to have happened today that was worth telling me about. And they're kind of psh, 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 psh,
exactly
in the back seat, but they're never saying anything to me.
I get all the stuff, all my intel from the moms and the girls, the moms of the girls in my class.
I mean, it's just, you have to. Okay. Alicia wants to know, are there Boston media people that have influenced your books or any other mystery writers that have influenced you?
Oh.
I never can answer that question. And I'm like, to be sure, there are a million.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't typically read a lot of mysteries. I don't think of myself as a mystery writer, but I do like Michael Connelly. I think he's great.
Yeah.
And Boston Media? I don't know. yeah, Boston media has influenced my writing. I'm not.
I'm betting. Okay, I bet she means like anything like in the news, like something that happened in the news or something that you were like, "Ooh, that's a little Easter egg I can drop."
Yeah. Well, tragically, there were at the time about a year before I was writing this, there were a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few big news stories about people who had lost their lives either by falling or jumping from roofs of parking lots and things like that. And so that was in the news a lot. So those kinds of things, I think subconsciously just kind of work their way into your mind.
Totally.
Especially the tragic stories, they just kind of stick with you.
Yeah, but you don't forget that you definitely know. Oh, she said TV or radio personalities. I was totally wrong. So okay. I totally misread that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Christine Mott wants to know how long. Okay, I think I'm saying this right. So, like, how long does it take from the time you have finished your book till the time it comes out, till pub day?
Right. So back in the day when I was an editor, we used to say it takes as long to make a book as it does a baby, 9 months.
Yep.
And that was the rule of thumb. And then now I feel like everything is so much more fast paced. And I don't know if it's just because we're all digital, everything's digital files now, or if it's just the nature of the beast in that you have to get things out quickly these days. And, especially when things are time. I think for nonfiction, this is more of an issue because you have to tie it in sometimes, right?
True.
Current events. And, I think now, so I'm just trying to do the math in my head. I think my final revised copy, I mean, we were making final changes and page proofs right up through probably the end of November. So this, by the time it actually came out, that's 6 months or so, not even. So
wow, that's fast.
Well, but there had been a lot of revisions up until that point, so I shouldn't say that.
So you felt like it was in like a good spot when you turned it in.
No, it was in an awful spot when I turned it in back in the beginning of probably it was last March or so in the spring.
Okay.
And then my editor had for a while got comments, and then I revised it and did a revision probably in September, and then more revising. So
okay.
So I guess by the time I put in the final manuscript, it was closer to that. But
because that's probably how I will turn in the first draft, and it's like a year from the time I turned in the first draft to the time it comes out. But it's when your book's going to come out. Like I sort of know it's going to come out late April-ish.
Right.
Right. So anyway, well, that is really interesting. Okay, just I think I've gotten everyone's questions. So I am going to ask you a couple of things, and then we're gonna go. But everybody's still hanging around with us, and we've actually got new people as we've gone on. So I don't think they're tired of. They just want to celebrate the launch. So these are just like a silly question. So if you were not a writer, what would your dream job be?
That's a great question. I kind of feel like this is my dream job, though. That's such a corny answer, though.
No, it's not at all. It is a dream job. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. So if you could trade places with someone for one day, who would you trade places with?
Ooh.
Are these hard?
These are fun. They're hard because I don't think anyone's ever asked me them before. Wow. I think right now, if I could trade places, I would want to trade places with Kamala Harris, because I just think that she
what a good one.
Is in such a great position to make real change. I think that would be fun. Don't you think? Just like
that's such a good answer. I would say like something so much. I would have said something like so much more shallow than that. So that was a really.
You would have said something literary or.
No, probably wouldn't.
No, I don't know. I just find it inspiring to, to have a woman of color in that position, and I think to be a fly on the wall right now in the White House would be really interesting. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so can you tell everyone where they can find you online so they can go follow along with you.
Yes, please. Oh, and I promised people the recipe for for this cocktail too, which I will post. I will post it on my author website. So that will give you incentive to come visit. So it's Wendy. It's very straightforward. WendyFrancisAuthor.com. And that's where you can read a little bit about me and my other books and see reviews and things as they come in. And then I'm on Twitter. I don't even know all my handles. I think I'm Wendy Francis. Well, there are a couple of different Wendy Francis.
No, mine is too. Like some I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey and some I'm Kristy W. Harvey, and I never can remember which one is which, and I always have to go back and look. And then sometimes I'll realize that I've like said it wrong, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just like put somewhere that I was such and such, and I'm not. That's not my handle.
Yeah, so I think I'm Wendy Francis 4 on Twitter, and then I'm Wendy Francis Author on Facebook and Instagram. I couldn't tell you. I think I'm Wendy Francis Author, maybe something like that.
I like just tagged you. I should remember. Yeah, you're Wendy Francis Author. I'm like 90%.
Am I? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Sure.
Well, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me share your pub day with you.
Thank
you. It's been so great.
And
I just want to remind everyone, check out the Summertime Guests. And I have to say,
Under the Southern Sky.
Oh, thank you. And I do have to say, please support An Unlikely Story. They were so nice to have us tonight. Our indie bookstores are so important. This one is especially amazing because Wimpy Kid. I mean, I got major street cred for that tonight. And because Wimpy Kid is definitely like favorite series status, but so are the Treehouse books. And y'all were talking about those earlier tonight. So he thought it was pretty cool for being on here, I just have to say. So thank you, Wendy, for giving me some street cred with my 9-year-old.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for all those great questions. And it's such a treat to chat. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. It's great to see people's comments, and I'll look back through them later on too, because I know there's a lot I missed. So thank you all, and thank you, Cassie, for to the store.
Thank you both. I can't believe it's been an hour. It went by so fast. I blinked and it was gone. Click that green button to purchase Wendy's book. You can actually purchase all of her books and Kristy's books, and you can pre-order Kristy's new book. So when it comes out on Pub Day, you'll have it in the mail, and you're going to get signed book plates from Wendy and Kristy. So hop on that opportunity, support an independent bookstore, and support these two lovely ladies. Thank you both so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Cassie. Thanks, everybody. It was so good to see you.
Thank you so much.